Now, LifeAdministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to episode 6 of Life Administration, How to Stay Married. You didn't know that I was going to do it like that, did you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. The circus master.
I got you.
Although for this episode, that might
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Leslie, what has changed in the last 42 minutes since the time that we just did the previous podcast?
2 of my 3 dogs are up here. We have the Australian Shepherd right here that we didn't even announce when he came in the middle of the last podcast because, well, he's not above the table. And the slumbering wolfhound is right over here.
Don't wake the slumbering wolfhound.
Yes. We are praying that nobody comes to the door because both of these have a very large. We'll be marking for edit if somebody comes to the door.
It's basically like you'll have to grab every piece of equipment we have because like something will definitely get knocked over.
Yes.
Something will be broken. So
yes.
If you hear an abrupt edit, that's what it is.
Yes.
We're playing with fire today.
We are playing with fire. Although they're sleeping nicely now.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. This is great. Okay, so I want to get right into it because this is great. Episode 6, How to Stay Married. I was joking in the sound check that all you'll ever need is to just listen to this one podcast, and that's all you'll ever need. So after 40 minutes, you're going to be an expert in marriage. You're going to be able to get married. You're going to be able to stay married. Everything is going to be worked out for you.
This is sarcasm.
Right. Actually, this, I feel like
we're going to
this...
scratch the surface.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot more conversational, and I'm actually really excited to hear from our listeners.
Yes.
Because I think that they are going to email us, hit us up on Twitter with hopefully specific things that y'all are dealing with, that maybe we could give more pointed, and I don't want to say advice, because like that's not what this is. These are more like tips and tricks to help have a fruitful and wonderful marriage.
Guidelines.
Guidelines, right? And so I really think that when it comes to this topic, the listeners are going to ultimately steer the conversation over a course of however long, right?
But I do want to, this is one of the things that we said we were going to say often. We're talking about typical relationships here, typical marriages here. We are not talking about what I call the 4 A's, abuse, adultery, addiction, and abandonment. It's not that the advice that I might give here or that we might give here would never work in those, but those situations are they need to be handled on their own. They need to be handled by your circle of mentors, by, maybe mental health professionals counseling professionals that can help you. Those are bigger. We're talking about the eyes just didn't fall, or I thought he was the one,
I thought he doesn't love me the same way anymore.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about that kind of
that sort of
what's usually legally called irreconcilable differences.
Yeah, I really think of marriage, and so because of the nature of this topic, because we are prone to also talk a lot, this is going to be a lot more conversational.
Yes.
And then we're going to touch on some tools and some things that we've done to help have a successful and fruitful marriage. But just know that this isn't even close to the end all be all. Like there are books, resources, counsel. I mean, like this is the beginning. To me, this is sort of like the episode where you go, I want to have a better marriage, regardless of where you are.
Or I want to in the future have a good marriage.
Right.
Right. So I mean, because this podcast is really, or not only, but it's aimed at people that aren't actually married. Like, so what do you want to do? What do you aim to be later on?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so, because there is something to be said about being in the place to be chosen, right? It's like you're picking your mate, but they're picking you.
No,
and so we're gonna get
that's one of the
I mean, there's
one of the things that we are gonna hit on often is that we focus too much on what does
the
that
other
person do on the other person when really you need to be focusing on yourself.
Absolutely. So let's kick it off. Let's get going. I guess our first big point that we just really alluded to was you got to choose wisely, man.
Absolutely.
You got to choose wisely.
This is one of the things we talked about in the podcast on a life plan. Remember? Think about what you want in a spouse. A lot of times people come through and think, well, first of all, there's the myth of the one perfect person in the world for you to find, all this kind of stuff. And so if you find the one, then you'll just know.
I'm biting my tongue right now because I hate this myth.
This myth is a pervasive myth, and it's a particularly problematic one because it suggests I don't have to think about it at all. I will have an instinct. Okay, well, first of all, that leads to a lot of relationships that were really just based on erotic love and lust. Okay, which is essential for a good relationship, but it's not great as the basis for, maybe it was the spark at the beginning, the person drew your eye to that person, but
that's not going to be there forever.
That's not going to be there forever. It's not enough. It's like junk food.
Yeah.
So we have this idea, when I find the one, I'll just know, which means that I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about the kind of person that I want in a spouse. And worse, I don't have to think about the kind of spouse I need to be. Right, because I'll just know. Let's lay that one to rest right now. That one.
Not a real thing.
Not a real thing.
Not a real thing.
Or to the extent that it is a real thing, it's a trap. It's a pitfall.
Yeah, it's a trap. I like people that come to me and say, but it's so romantic, It's like this person they're destined. And to me, like, that's not romantic at all. I mean, I don't have like a choice. Like, I've been saddled with this one person that they're going to fall into my lap and like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Like, no, like that's not, I'm a changing and evolving individual. What I needed at 20 and what I need at 34 is not the same thing. And like, I need to be with somebody that is going to mold and change, make me better and challenge me and like push me. Those weren't the qualities necessarily that I was looking for at a younger age,
Honestly, I really think most young people aren't looking really at all beyond like physical qualities.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they think about it that much.
And I would love to, like, again, going back to listeners sort of steering the conversation, if we're like off base there, I'd love to hear about it.
Right.
I'd love to hear about like, here are the things that we're looking for, but I would be shocked if that was not number one on their list, because it was number one for me. Because I sort of prescribe to the theory, and I think I still kind of do, honestly, that attraction is a powerful tool to get a relationship up and going and off the ground.
Absolutely.
And I understand that there are relationships that are built like, we were friends first and then, we became lovers or whatever. Right. That's awesome.
The attraction came later.
But to me, that's the second most important thing, right? And for some people, it just might be different. It might be a preference.
As my father-in-law used to tell my husband, it's crucial. It is, in fact, you need to have that, physical attraction element. And sometimes it's the spark that started things. Sometimes it's the surprise that comes along later in a friendship. It needs to be there, but it is not the foundation, because guess what? That's the one that goes in and out for various stages of your life. And if you are using it to signal that you have found the one, the romantic part of it, the sexual part of it, the lustful part of it, if you're using that to be your signal of this is the right one, then whenever it does wane, for whatever reason, for perfectly normal reasons, you're going to start doubting.
And it will wane.
And it will.
It will wane. And
I mean, if nothing else, you'll get the flu and you don't feel like it anymore. And then you're like, well, but he doesn't do that for me. Oh my God. There's a pop song about it right now. I mean, it just drives me.
Hey man, I'm 38. The libido's on the downcline. Down we go, right? It's like a roller coaster. Right? So there are other things that
before you factor in the fact that you have a 3-year-old and you aren't sleeping as much as you used.
Right. And so the things that I value, they're just different. With all that being said though, my wife is hot. She's hot. She's beautiful. She's sexy. She's like, I just I absolutely adore her and worship the ground that she walks on.
But y'all are out of the stage of, pardon me, but hit the door and rip each other's clothes off?
Yeah, and
you've been married, what, 12 years?
Yeah, so, right. And our sort of story just, here comes a commercial break. Buckle up, Buttercup. Okay, so the story is that I was moving to Austin. She was my leasing agent for the apartment that I was going to move into. She actually like really didn't like me at first for like the first, I think I moved there in June, and like she couldn't even tolerate
Sean
me.
off screen.
Yeah, I know. He's just like
his best
nodding.
friend is our cameraman, and
he's just nodding.
He's laughing.
And he's like, you're not even gonna tell the full version. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna. That'll be in a mini cast. So you have to pay for that one, I think. All right, no. So we had a very sort of explosive romance in the sense of she was all those things that I just said: beautiful, sexy, alluring, just captivating.
Also a musician.
Also a musician, which was important to me. And honestly, like if I'm being honest, the way that I tell the story is that the first time that I saw her, regardless of your beliefs, God hit me with a 2x4 and told me that is the woman for you. Not because she was the one, but because I had gone on this journey and I was ready to now receive. Mm-hmm. I was ready to receive the love that she could give me. I wasn't there before for core wounds. Girls had messed with me in the past. I had messed with girls. Like all of our readers have their own little stories about that kind of stuff. But regardless, I was now in this position to be able to receive love. I feel like I get this message clear as day that this is the one. And so I start this relentless pursuit to get after her. My starting point was that she didn't like me to the point of we went on our first date on we had our first kiss on January 19th. Then we had our first date on February 13th.
I'm impressed.
We were married. Don't be that impressed. I just went through a bunch of old emails and all these dates, like I just saw them last week. Actually, as I was saying it, I'm like, this sounds so awesome, right? Like, how good am I remembering all this stuff? Yeah, no, it was on our anniversary we went through all this stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, right. And then we got married on April 6th. So like if you sort of chase the time
of the next year,
no, of the same year. Of the same year. This is very contrary to everything that we're going to talk about, probably.
Hold.
Even Ro was like, wait, you're telling me that you could get married in 8 weeks? Yeah. Yes. Now, so we were in this marriage and the honeymoon phase sort of dwindled, right? So now it's like a completely different dynamic because now we're 2 years in, now all those things have faded. And now you're like, wait a minute, is this really what I wanted to do? Or was I just like, And so I say all of this to say I have had, and she would admit to this, an awful, terrible, can't believe we're still together marriage. What are we even doing in the same household? To now the apple of my eye, my everything, like the thought of her not being around crushes me. Like I can't even. You can't get your head around. I can't even wrap my mind around like what my life would look like without her and the things that she's done for me. The man that I am today, that she has had a part in molding me and changing me, and vice versa. The woman that she is now. In the last podcast we just talked about
changing.
Yeah, and we just talked about the trip to Galveston, right? Like before, I would never think about that point A to point B to point D, right? She's put that in me, and so much so that like I need it now, right? And that's a good thing. Anyway, so I say that to say I've been on all sides. I feel I want to let people know I feel qualified to speak about these things because I feel like I haven't seen it all, but boy, I mean, I've seen a lot of it. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of it, and so I feel like I got some things to talk about here. So that to say that even when you find that person, right, that whole story was based upon, once you find that quote unquote perfect person, it's always going to be easy then, right, Leslie? Right? We found each other. It's all good. We're done. For
anybody who's only listening to the audio and this, my eyes just rolled right off my head. No. In fact, it doesn't. A story. My time first.
Yep.
I will tell a shorter story than Ryan.
I said that this was going to be conversational.
Yes, this is true. So, newly married, or no, I guess I was in a Bible study group with a bunch of other gals, and we were all in the 2 to 3, 4 years married, and most of us had our first child, and I think I was pregnant with my second, and a couple of the others were as well. Anyway, so just kind of that stage, early, mid-30s. And one of us had parents that the dad had recently gotten the mother a 25th anniversary ring. Okay, so they brought it to the priest. That was the priest at our church. They brought it to Father Rich and said, "Hey, would you bless this?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, I'll bless it if you do a renewal of your vows." Okay, so they're like, "Oh, that's great." So they have a 25th anniversary celebration, and they have their kids, and they had, I think, 4 kids, and each of those 4 kids had now we had young families of their own. So here they are, they're in the thing, and they get to the vows. For better, for worse, for richer, for poor, all of that stuff that the first time you're getting married sounds so romantic. For better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health. It just sounds so lovely. Except now, these people had been married for 25 years. They knew exactly, when for richer, for poorer, for better, they had instances going on in their head. And better yet, their kids that were now married from 2 to 7 years also did too. So now I still get chill bumps every time I tell the story, because now it was a room full of people where everybody knew exactly what those vows meant in a non-romantic sense.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Right. It doesn't matter how perfect the person is for you in a, we agree on everything, or we're the perfect opposites, the yin and the yang that balance, whatever. There will come stuff. There will be car accidents. There will be, oh my gosh, the time that I forgot to renew the children's passports, and we were flying that. Actually, it was the 4th of July that I forgot, and we were flying on the 5th of July. Right. So, and I caused a huge problem for so we had to spend the entire day before we flew luckily we're in Houston, and so we can get, there's a passport office that will do that. So there comes those stupid things. There comes the small annoyances, like somebody leaves toothpaste in the sink, and so the next person has to come.
Or doesn't put the cat back on.
Exactly. I mean, the dumb ones, or I can come up with a huge list of things. So even the person that is you think most balanced with you, most fits with you, there will be annoyances. You live with this person. Yeah. And there will be big things that come along and that you don't think you can. And frankly, it would be easier because you know what? Now he's been in that car accident, and now he has, a long 2-year rehabilitation period. And frankly, I don't want to deal with this. I'd rather be doing, and I would. Who really wants to help somebody on crutches for 2 frickin' years or what? But
you got to go through it.
You got to go through it.
You got to go through it, and
here's the thing: at the end of it, people talk about there'll be some story and some news of the unusual or whatever, and it's the 2 80-year-olds that are a la The Notebook. They're at the hospital together, and and people will share this story as the sweet old person romance story, and oh my gosh, and they'll be like, where are the romances like that anymore? The romances like that, actually, when they got to these little hard parts, and they just powered through anyway, even though it wasn't what I wanted to do, even though it wasn't what you wanted to do. We're in this together. We're partners. We're going to do this. We're going to go through this together. That's why they're at 86 in the nursing home, holding hands and looking into each other's eyes and still there for each other, because they always have been and they've always played through.
Yeah, the concept is, right, you have to value marriage above your partner. That sounds kind of weird.
And above yourself.
Hold on. Jeez. Normally I just let you go and go and go, but I have something I want to say here. I have opinions. All the other stuff, I have no idea what I'm doing. This thing, I have a good idea of what I'm doing. So you put the marriage up above the other person, and you put the other person up above your feelings. Your feelings are the last thing on the totem pole. I sort of feel like your feelings can kind of give you this direction, but ultimately there's a moment, I believe, that every single person knows whether an action is selfish or selfless. You have to get in the mindset of being selfless all the time. Your spouse has to be in the mindset of being selfless all the time. When I think of
those are the marriages that work.
Yeah.
When you have a partnership, when two people are thinking about each other and the partnership rather than themselves.
Yeah,
that's when it
use
lasts.
this example of the Notebook, and I'm sort of just thinking about it, and the whole movie is them sort of missing each other until the end, where they finally get it together, right? But in my memory,
that one myth,
but the reality is that, and I believe it's been a while, but the gentleman in that movie, he pursues relentlessly. He's always trying to find a way to bring the girl into his life. And so then they get together, right? And then flash forward. But it has been established that they are going to pursue each other relentlessly, nonstop. And so I say all of that to say that once you have disregarded your feelings, that you are now going to take out selfish behavior, replace it with selfless behavior. You are now going to covet marriage more than the other person.
Right. Then the other person, the savior of you, you complete me.
Right. That's not a real thing.
No.
Right? That's not a real. You
it's
can
a
never.
setup for failure, because that person will always fail.
Exactly. Your spouse is a human being. Human beings mess up a lot, and you have to be able to have forgiveness in your heart. This is a completely different relationship than any other relationship that's out there. And so you have to be willing to sacrifice. And so I say that word, and I'm sure people are well, she didn't do
if
this.
If she's the one, you wouldn't have to sacrifice.
And that's just not the case. Yeah, that's not the case, because the reality is that if you're selfless, they're selfless, then you're filling each other up constantly.
Right.
You end up actually wanting to be, it's almost because the selfless stuff becomes selfish because it becomes so good, right? The other person receives love, and you're receiving love, and it's wonderful. And then all of that to say, you're now on the same team.
Yep.
Now, that's an easy thing to say.
It's hard the first couple times you go through this self.
It's an easy thing to say. It is extremely hard in practice. In a game of football, there are rules. You know that your teammate's not going to come up and club you in the back of the head because you made a bonehead play. No, he's going to come up to you and say, "Hey, man, shake it off. Let's go. We're on the same team. Right. We got a game to win." The race of life is long, and it's hard, and you need a teammate to help you through it. If that person's not on your team unconditionally, and you're not on their team unconditionally, you're going to have problems.
Yep.
You're going to have problems. But that means understanding when your spouse makes a mistake, screws up, you have to have forgiveness, man. You have to know that that the things that they do are not intentionally there to hurt you. Now, not all marriages are built like that, though. And you need to hear that.
That was one of the lessons I had to learn early on. My husband came, because I was the scorekeeper at the beginning of our marriage. Okay, so we also had a rough start. And it was mainly because, I entered marriage thinking that it was transactional. You do this for me, I do this for you. And that doesn't work in a marriage partnership. But one of the things that we, he would say something and I would take, it would hurt my feelings or what, and there would be 3 ways that it could be interpreted, but I would interpret it the way,
the worst way possible.
Because I was already annoyed. I was annoyed about other things, and most of them were silly things, stuff like splitting chores stuff, but I was allowing that to fester. So I was already baseline annoyed with him. And then he would say something that once again could be taken 3 ways. I would take it the poorest way. And finally one day he turned around, he goes, "Look, I love you. I am in this team, this relationship with you. So please, anytime there is something that, I've said that you can interpret more than one way, and one of those ways is hurtful to you, please assume that I didn't intend it that way. And, he's like, and come to me, say, I'm sorry that, that hurt my feelings or what. He's like, that's totally fine. But, right, he was getting hurt by my assumption that he was trying to hurt me.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he's
it's
like,
a vicious
yes.
circle.
He's like, I am never trying to hurt your feelings with the words that come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact he's a very direct person. So, he's like, if I'm intending to insult somebody, you probably need to, very, if I shoot you, you'll be facing me.
Yeah. Right to your face. Yeah, exactly. That's great. So, to more tangible things, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Timing.
No, this episode didn't have any risk of running off.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I actually kind of wanted to embrace that a little bit. I kind of wanted, because marriage is messy, love is messy, and to deal with it in a sort of prescribed, matter-of-fact way is inauthentic.
Right.
It's not real. That's not how it works. We've all experienced heartbreak. We've all experienced that jubilation that comes, right? Everyone's been on all sides of the spectrum. And so to not talk about it that way doesn't feel real. In any case, I digress. Timing. Where and when? What does that look like? Is it different for everybody? Is it, I have to be in a certain place at a certain time? What does that look like when you're looking for your spouse?
Look, really, as far as timing goes, the only thing that you can control, well, as far as lots of things go, the only thing you control is your own preparedness and your own readiness. So are you working on becoming the kind of spouse that you would want to have, that you want to be? Are you open to a relationship at certain time? because sometimes you're just like, no, I'm just not interested in that right now. That's the only timing you control. The rest of it just, so back to when we were talking about a life plan, it does not do at all to say, oh, I want to be married by the time I'm 25. That way lies mistakes. It's just too tight. It's too specific. You can't, or you shouldn't, because then you are more likely to, 25 and 35, let's do that one again. So I want to be married by the time I'm 25. So you're much more likely to give deference to the deadline and say, oh, well, this is who I'm with at the time. So I need to push him to get married, or I need to marry this person, even if it's really a bad, bad relationship, whatever. Or the same thing, I've seen far too many relationships break up at, 24, 25, just because, well, it's not time. I'm supposed to do this other stuff beforehand. I'm supposed to live, travel. I'm supposed to get my career established, so I can't. So I'm going to leave this actually really great relationship and potential partnership. I'm going to walk away from it because it's just too early.
Yeah.
Right? Both of them, because you've nailed down a time.
Both of them are wrong.
Both of them are wrong. Both of them are wrong. So really, timing is about you figuring out when you're ready, when you think you can take on the commitment, when you think that you are a person that's mature enough to be able to enter into this agreement.
Yeah, and I would also say one of the hallmarks of are you ready to find the person is, are you happy with yourself?
Absolutely.
Are you happy with your life?
That doesn't mean that you're perfect and everything's wonderful, but are you generally content and at peace?
Yeah, Are you following peace? Are you generally content? Do you have interests that are outside of work that also develop you as an individual? Are you busy? You know what I mean? Nobody wants to enter into a relationship where the only thing that the other person has to do is to hang out with you, right? My grandfather used to say Cleon stage 5, no, I can remember specifically, I was dating this girl and I brought her home to me and he told right out of the gates, he's like, stage 5. She's got nothing going on. No, hey, she's got nothing going on. She doesn't do any extra work on high school,
Right.
Doesn't do any extra activities. You're doing X, Y, and Z. Here's why this is not going to work out. My man was 100% right. All I could think was I need my own space. I need to be able to do my own thing. But for her, it was the only thing that was around was me.
Right. It's the thing that she'd planned on that she was filling.
Yeah.
So you were now. Then you're kind of a project.
Was I ever?
And nobody likes to feel like a project.
Yeah. And so it ends up
We're
happening.
going to have to talk about change at some
Yeah.
point. But yes.
It's
Because nobody does like to feel like a project.
in my show notes, we're not even past segment 1 yet. So like
Okay.
we're doing great. This is perfect. We're right on time. Everything is
I
wonderful.
think Sean just flashed us 30 minutes. Just so you know.
Okay, so we sort of talked about it a little bit, but it's the headspace, right? It's being able to do other things, being happy with yourself.
Mhm.
Now you're sort of receptive, right? Because I also think, by the way, when you're happy with yourself, people recognize that, and that's attractive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same thing, you're also, if you're not happy with yourself, you're probably staying in, you're not physically available because you're just not there.
Yeah.
Right? Because also part of this is being, again, we're talking community, neighborhoods. You do need to be out. Like in order to meet people, you generally need to be out and about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's one thing I should have mentioned on timing. There's a little bit, yes. So when you're in high school and then later college, you're around a lot of people your age. So it's much
more fluid.
It's much more fluid, and there's just it's easier to you naturally get together. You have parties that you go to, you have classes that when you get out into the working world, it just all of a sudden you might have coworkers with you, but maybe you have 6 of them. Heck, you had 6 in your seminar class on Monday nights, right? And then you lived with 26 in the sorority house, and then and then they had friends because then they're also introducing you to other people. So yes, when you were in college, there is more
resources.
Yeah,
people available.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
more networking.
Think about it this
More
way.
natural.
Like I think about my life, and I think about like the friends that I met, right? Like say a reason, a season, and forever, and people that I work with. I've been friends with them while I work there, and then I'm not there anymore. I'm not friends with them anymore, or I do some other kind of activity, and then I'm not friends with them anymore. Whatever. So I say that to say, like, if you don't, when you're an adult, those things besides work are sort of like taken away.
Exactly.
Right? They're gone.
Exactly. And you don't realize them until they're gone. And it's like a year after college. And you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't. So you have to be more conscious about being social.
You have
once
to be
you graduate.
active. You can be passive in high school. You can be passive in college. After that, you have to be active about being social.
Right.
Period. End of story. You got to create opportunity for yourself.
And we'll get more into that on the being a good neighbor and community.
Okay, I actually am going to shout over. Sean, how much time where are we at here, buddy?
33 minutes.
33 minutes. Okay, so what I would like to do is I'd like to talk a little bit here in segment 2, and then maybe just kind of wrap it up and save the rest for another podcast. Okay? So, because there's just a lot to talk about here, and we haven't even really dug into a bunch of the specifics yet. So, segment 2. So this is where we're going to sort of talk about like the big thing, right? You have a big thing. I have a big thing. What's your big thing?
No, you have to go with your big thing first because your big thing is a detail of my big thing.
Okay. Now that's not to say that my big thing's not as important.
No. It's
Are you diminishing my big thing?
No.
Are you making my big thing small?
Oh my goodness. Okay, sorry. Delayed reaction. Sean is hiding his head.
I'm going first.
Okay,
I'm going first. Okay, so for me, one of the big turning points in my my marriage was the 5 love languages. Dr. Gary Chapman. I think he wrote it.
People might not know.
I'm about to give it. So, like, I think he wrote the book in 1984. It went on the bestsellers list in 2002. It has yet to come off. So it's like it's very, very sort of well known.
And there's now love languages for children, love languages for teens.
Tons of them.
I've recently been recommended to read, so I'll be doing that.
It's an unbelievable resource because to me, what it does is it sort of provides this framework of how you're supposed to look at love, interpret love, and then understand like what do the things that you do is your spouse valuing versus the things that you're doing that maybe you value but they don't value.
Right, because everybody has a way of expressing their preferred expression love language and their preferred receiving.
So
Love
with
And obviously for your spouse, you're going to want to know what their receiving one is, regardless of what your preferred expression is.
yeah, so at the risk of copyright infringement, we're gonna say that the 5 love languages are 1, receiving gifts, 2, quality time, 3, words of affirmation, 4, acts of service, 5, physical touch.
Mhm.
People tend to have a primary and a secondary. Now, how? Like, I'm like boiling this book down in like 30 seconds.
That's what
How
everybody does.
do you do you determine what your partner's love language is? Well, watch how they give you love. Watch the things that they do to show you how they give love.
Right.
90% of the time, I don't want to say 100, I don't want to overstate it, but 90% of the time, that's how they want to receive love,
Yes.
right? So my wife, her primary love language is quality time.
Mm-hmm.
Her second is physical touch. So that means in order for me to fill up her bucket, right? So
Mhm.
or her emotional bank account, right? Because every day I'm taking withdrawals from our emotional bank
Right.
account, right? Like just by
Well,
living.
life is.
Yeah,
Just by
life is,
living.
right. Yeah, just by living, right?
Life administration.
Yeah.
Bills. You got to pay the damn bills.
So
yeah.
it's my job to pour back into her. It's her
Right.
job to pour back into me.
Right.
So I
That
know.
means you've got to pay attention to how she likes to receive,
Right.
not how you necessarily prefer to express
Took
it.
me 9 years to figure it out.
Mhm.
9 years. And ultimately, if I sit on the couch with her and I rub her shoulder, like it's not a sexual
That's better-
thing,
Right.
right?
exactly.
Like, and I want to make sure that like, oh, guys, like, ooh, physical touch, right? That's not what this is. This is touch without sex. This is about intimacy
Mm-hmm.
and being close and bringing yourselves closer together. So quality time.
Some people are huggers.
Yep.
They're the physical touch people.
Right.
Yes.
Now, for me, that's not how I receive love, but I know that that's how she does it. I receive love by words of affirmation and acts of service.
Mhm.
Like the only way I can explain it is I feel love. Number one, you're lifting me up with your
Mhm.
words. You're telling me you are amazing. I love you. Oh, right. I take that and I run with it. And then you say these things, and then you do these acts of service that then back up your words. I love it. Yeah, it's like it fills me up instantly.
Mhm.
Now listen, you can sit on the couch with me and rub my arm for 6 hours. I care zero. It just doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's like might as well be petting a dog. You know, like it's the same thing for me, right? But that's the reality of how people receive love is that it's in your language or it's not. And you might be doing things. You might be giving words of affirmation to your spouse, but really what she wants to see is your face. She
Right.
wants you to spend time, right? You might say, honey, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in the world. Oh, I'm so lucky to be married to
Or
you.
you're the person that gives fancy gifts.
Right.
And then you feel insulted because they don't seem to like your gifts,
Yep.
but really what they're looking for is...
I can't even wrap my mind around gifts. Like
Yeah.
when people ask me like the
Right
5
there
love
with you.
languages, that's the one I forget every time. I'm like, gifts, yeah. Anyway, so that's my big thing. I would encourage anyone who is looking to get into a relationship, is in a relationship, or is struggling, or it's great.
Mhm.
This is a book that plays on every single level. You can get it on Audible. You can
Like I
listen
said,
to it
now
in
it's
your
got
car.
ones for different
Yep.
stages of life.
So the plan is you download every single episode of Life Administration, and then you go listen to this book.
You can put it in the show notes.
In the show notes. No, I'm kidding. Get your hands on it, read it, spend time with it. It is a life changer. And then this is one of those things though, where it's like you get head knowledge, but it has to travel 18 inches down into your heart. And you have to have heart knowledge. And you got to put it into practice. And it's hard and it's difficult
Yep.
because you are not going to understand why this person wants to be loved that way.
And you don't need to. That's not...
Your
That's
feelings
not
matter
the
zero.
point.
They matter
That's-
zero.
Yeah.
Your job is to fill them up and fill up that emotional bank account that life takes away.
Mhm.
That's my one thing.
Mhm.
Your turn.
Okay. Your one thing is an example, so I'm just going to take that up and go
Okay.
big concept with it. Because my one thing, and it's
Yes.
totally different
Yeah.
details on the story, but it's the same general thing. I had 2 very good marriage mentors. Father Rich now at our church was brilliant in helping me through. I had some other things from other like it wasn't so much I was bringing baggage into Gemini's marriage that I thought I wasn't bringing baggage in. And so, those three helped me through this stage significantly. And what I came out on the other side was you need to worry more about the kind of spouse you are than the one you have.
Yep.
Now, one of those things is that means I'm more concerned with what Jim's love languages are than I am concerned whether or not he's filling up mine. Now, I have chosen wisely. So Jim is actually just as concerned about my love languages and about being a good husband to me as I am about being a good wife to him, which that's what makes it work. Like, even when we slip sometimes, I don't know about you, but Jim and I never get annoyed with each other.
Oh man, matter of fact, we were driving home yesterday, and I was telling Sean on the way home, I was telling him a fight about that Lauren and I had, but you can fight in a way that is productive and that is fair and that like good things come out of it,
Exactly. And it's more like, think about when you have kids and they're bickering. They're not really fighting, but they're just bickering over maybe who has the remote or something like that. Jim and I will bicker, not really often anymore, even because it gets, like, the more you get used to thinking about the kind of spouse you are rather than the one you have, the easier it gets. The first time that you really come up with that and say, you know what, I'm not going to worry about any of how I think it should be or anything. I'm just going to do it the way that it needs to be done for our marriage.
Yeah.
All right. And by the way, this was early. We'd been married about 9 months and I was talking about household chore division. Okay. I scared our dog. Long story. Actually, I wrote it up one time and I will post that in the show notes too. And you can read that.
Is this like a curated piece? Like, have you edited it since then? Or is this like, that time like... We freaked the dog out with this fight about chores that became a fight about everything else. And she jumped into Jim's lap, terrified and like trying to get his hands down. Because you've never actually heard my husband yell, but you've heard him speak. Yeah. Yeah, no, I can imagine that would be...
The border collie was terrified, and that was just enough of a moment to stop us to be like, okay, take a breath, step back,
pause button,
right. And that's how we got through that one, and then things repaired from there because that was about the time that I realized that I needed to be working on that. But that's what we were arguing about. We were really arguing about chore division and who does what and why can't you do this when I need you to do it and all that. And I finally said to myself, okay, I'm going to stop worrying about whether or not our chores are equally divided and I'm just going to do what needs to get done. A couple of things happened. And it was like people started noticing within 3 days, we were getting like we were happier, we were more relaxed, all this kind of stuff. The stuff that actually needed to get done was getting done. And he was actually doing more, like, because I felt like I was working and we were, it's the typical thing where you're like, I feel like I'm doing the lion's share of the chores, even though we're both working and stuff. Like, once I shifted to, okay, no, I'm just going to do what needs to get done. Well, lo and behold, he rose to the challenge and he did it too. And part of it was just because we were no longer angry with each other. Like, I let go. Really, what I did was I let go of the anger.
Yeah.
I let go of the anger and the resentment. And so, seriously, Ryan, it was 3 days.
Yeah.
It was 3 days. And I don't think that Jim and I have had, maybe half a dozen arguments as intense as that one was. But the arguments that we've had that have been intense since then have been things like how to raise the children, like big things that you might expect to have.
Right.
Not chore division.
Right.
There's no reason. One of the reasons, that's one of the first times I thought that maybe one day I would do something like this, except it was going to be written. But oh well.
Conflict for conflict's sake is bad. Conflict with action and resolution and compassion is a great thing. And
lawyers have a thing where one of the most expensive ways to engage in a lawsuit is a revenge suit. Conflict for conflict's sake.
Yeah.
You're most likely going to lose. You're going to blow a whole bunch of money. It's just bad. It's acid.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And so my other thing with that is if you're not having conflict in your relationship, I would challenge your authenticity in it.
Mhm.
because no two
Somebody's swallowing. Somebody
yeah.
is swallowing.
And if that person is swallowing, it's going to come up
Yep.
at some. I don't care if it's 5 years. I don't care if it's 10 years. I don't care if it's 20 years.
Completely concur.
Something is going to happen, and it's going to blow the sockets out of the thing. So,
Right.
okay, I think I want to cap it there. So, wow, we still have like half of our notes for this podcast. Legitimately,
So our first two-part podcast.
our first
correct?
two pot. That was my accent. Our first two pot podcast.
Ryan
from
is
Boston.
from Boston.
So I do everything in my power to like
every once
bury
in a
it,
while.
and then
I think one of my children has managed to get under your skin enough one time that you were speaking to her in Boston.
yeah.
Uh-huh. She was just that day.
She
was
shall
having-
remain nameless.
Yes, she was having nothing about her music lessons that afternoon, and I was like, "Wow,
Yes.
that's an accent."
In any case, thank you so much for paying attention and being with us, or even thank you for being with us and not paying attention. I hope you found something constructive out of this. Again, I know this isn't our normal format. I know we're a little bit more detail oriented.
Mhm.
That stuff is still coming,
Right.
but there's just so
This
much
is
to
just
talk
such a
about,
big
and so
topic, but everybody wants to know it.
everybody wants to
And-
know. Everybody. This is actually the second. Money was number one.
Mhm.
Number two was how to stay married. Number three was understanding how to have a baby and planning for that. It's just like
Which is getting ready
shocking.
to film.
Yeah, which is shocking. So
Right. I was actually surprised by that
Yeah.
part.
so anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please go to the website. Leslie, that's where they can find you. Most Chatties on the website.
Most chatty on the website. Yep.
I will be on Twitter at Ryan Talon. Please hit me up with any sort of questions, issues, concerns. I just love to hear the feedback on this episode, honestly, more than anything else, because this is one that is like, I mean, I have a heart for marriage. You know, like it's ingrained in me, and I want to help.
Good
as many
marriage is
people.
an awesome thing.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, I can't tell you how much more my husband and I can do because of the fact that we have, and that's inside and outside of the home, that's in professional life, that's at our church, that's in other charities. We have so much more power and reach as a couple of two than we would as individuals.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you guys for staying with us. And I guess we'll just see you in the next one.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.